It's time to shine with Kendell Lenice, transformational life coach, author, and speaker. This is a show where the spotlight shines on people, topics, and subjects that are honest, real, and relevant to you. Be ready to be educated, elevated, and entertained. Here's your host, Lady Motivator herself, Kendell Lenice. Good afternoon, good evening, good night, whenever you're listening to this podcast. But if you're listening right now, live, good evening. Thank you for shining with me, Kendell Lenice. I am here every Wednesday live at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can go to livingtruelivingyou.com to listen, or you can go where all podcasts are played. That's Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spreaker, Spotify, and soon to be iHeartRadio. I hope you listen every week and tell a friend that we are live at 10. But the beautiful thing about this podcast world is you can listen at any time right from your mobile device. Whether you have an iPhone or iPad or Google, Android, you can listen from anywhere. I would love for you to subscribe to the show so you can get the notifications and also listen to past shows. I have a gazillion shows on there before I made it to Apple and Google and all of those wonderful apps. But you can go back and listen to see some of the topics that I talked about. We have some great topics, I'm told, and I'm pleased that I like to diversify the podcast. When you listen to Shine, you will laugh, you will cry, you will think, you will grow, you will heal, and you will just hopefully better yourself and live your best life through the podcast, through me as a life coach or through my guests. Today, you got me. And I wanted to talk about this subject for a lot of reasons. The today's show is the power of an apology, why it's difficult for some to apologize. And we've all been in a situation where we knew we should apologize, or we felt that we were owed an apology and may or may not have gotten it. Have you ever needed an apology and never got it? You know, a lot of us have, or a lot of us, what about having the responsibility of giving an apology? Is there someone you owe an apology to, but you just can't seem to muster up those words? Those little words, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 letters. Apology. Believe it or not, some people have a difficult time apologizing. And you might be saying, oh, I believe it because I'm that person. Some people just, no matter what, if they're dead wrong, they can't apologize, or they're unable to give an apology when it's owed to someone. No matter what, I think everybody should have the ability to apologize. If someone says that you harmed or hurt them in any kind of way, I think an apology should be given. And it's not about whether you think they're right or wrong. It's because that person feels like they're wrong. It doesn't matter what you think. If someone feels that way, I strongly believe then it should be an apology. Now, you know, some may beg to differ and say, well, if I didn't do anything wrong, I'm not apologizing. But it's not about apologizing about what you've done wrong. It's about offending or hurting someone else. And I guess what gets under my skin is when people say, if you think I hurt you, I apologize. Have you ever heard that? And to me, that's not a sincere apology when I hear it. It's just not sincere, and not necessarily when I hear it for me, but just even if I hear someone else saying that. To me, it kind of cancels the apology out when someone says, I'm sorry if you thought this, or I'm sorry for whatever you thought. And then to me, it's really not sincere because you don't even know why you're apologizing. Someone told you you shouldn't apologize. Now, I would rather, if it was coming to me, I would rather not get an apology if it was just a fake, phony apology. Or you could be that person who are like, you know what? I'm not apologizing because I didn't do nothing wrong and I don't owe that person an apology. And of course, this is my opinion. You have a right to feel and think how you want when it comes to apologizing or receiving an apology. But why do you think that is about? What is it about an apology that people really have a difficult time talking about? That's what we're going to be talking about on today's Shine. I like to bring real issues and real topics to you, something that really has to do with you. I mean, that's everybody. Everybody is in this position one time or another. You might yearn for apology that you may never get. But before we get started, I want to get into our life note for today. All right, it's time for this week's life note. So in every show, I like to give a life note that goes right in line with our topic, or something that you can hold on to and carry you through the rest of your life, in a sense, because we're talking about apologies. So this is your life note for today. It's sort of a question. How do you forgive when the apology never comes? And I should say, the best apology is changed behavior. That is your life note for today. So you got double for the price of nothing, because this podcast is free. But that is your life note for today. I'll go with the latter one. The best apology is changed behavior. That is your life note for today, this evening, this morning, this afternoon, whenever you're listening to Shine. All right. So let's start with this apology. Let's talk about that. An apology can restore a person. It restores trust, empathy, understanding, and safety in relationships of all kinds. An apology has the ability to make both the giver and receiver feel respected and comfortable. When there is a disagreement or an argument, there can be pain, hurt, anger, disappointment, and possibly hatred, if it runs that deep. Yet and still, people find it difficult to apologize and claim, I don't need an apology, and not really pursue one, or not even look for one, or be the person to apologize. Yet they still are hurt, and they act out their pain in many different ways. But you know how it is when people say, well, I don't need this, I don't need that, I don't need his apology, her apology. But then all of the signs are there, and they're showing that they really do need that apology, but they don't know how to ask for that apology. According to Psychology Today, there are emotional benefits of an apology. It's so interesting because in my research, in my profession, I have a human services degree, and I'm also a certified life coach, and I'm a professional helper, as they call me, and I'm certified, and I have the educational background and all that stuff. So a lot of things that I do, I like to research, and I like to see the emotional, issues that come about when people don't eat right, or they don't exercise, or they don't forgive, or they don't do this, or they're stressed out, because there's always an adverse effect to your body. And it's all connected, mind and body. It's connected when we are upset, when we're sad, when we're depressed, all of those things, when we're stressed out, when we're yearning for something that we may not ever get. It shows up in our bodies. So on Psychology Today, they talk about the emotional benefits of an apology. A person who has been harmed feels emotional healing when he is acknowledged by the wrongdoer. When we receive an apology, we no longer perceive the wrongdoer as a personal threat. An apology helps us to move past our anger and prevents us from being stuck in the past. An apology opens the door to forgiveness by allowing us to have empathy for the wrongdoer. An apology benefits the receiver and the giver. So let's see what they say here for that. By apologizing and taking responsibility for our actions, we help rid ourselves of esteem, robbing, self-reproach, and guilt. An apology has the power to humble even the most arrogant. When we develop the courage to admit we are wrong and work past our resistance to apologizing, we develop a deep sense of self-respect. So, the toughest person can be so tough, super tough, uber tough. And then when they get the apology that they require or that's needed for them to grow and heal or move on, you see a childlike person. It's almost like the monkey is off their back. Have you ever seen that? I know I have. Apologizing helps us remain emotionally connected to our friends and loved ones. Knowing we have wronged someone may cause us to distance ourselves from the person, but once we have apologized, we feel freer to be vulnerable and intimate. And there is another little talked about benefit, and this is according to Psychology Today. Let's see. Since apologizing usually causes us to feel humiliated, it can also act as a deterrent, reminding us not to repeat that same act. So there is a connection between an apology and empathy. To forgive, most people need to gain some empathy and compassion for the wrongdoer. This is where an apology comes in. When someone apologizes, it's easier to view him or her in a compassionate way because you see that they have a heart. So it's you find, I guess, that window of forgiveness when someone becomes vulnerable, because it takes vulnerability, y'all, to apologize or to even accept an apology. Because if someone has the gut to come and to apologize, because a lot of people just can't do it. So if someone comes to you immediately and say, hey, I apologize for doing A, B, and C, it's up to you to receive that. Now, somebody might come up to you and be like, I don't want your apology. And that's the hurt and the pain and the disappointment talking. But then you go on about your day or about your week or about your life, and you still have a little bit of resentment because you feel like you were owed an apology. But I have to be honest, you guys, sometimes you just may not get that apology. So what do you do with those feelings? That's why it's important to address the issue. And if you need an apology, say you need one. If you really feel that you don't, but you see that it's coming out in the way you act and the things you do, then I would definitely start to work on you, whether it's going to see a therapist, seeing a life coach, just someone to help you unpack the real issue. Because a lot of times we mask a lot of things, and there are a lot of things inside of us that need to come out. But it doesn't verbally come out. It comes out in most actions. All right. So I just find it interesting that there are also two important underlying aspects of an apology. Talking about the intention and the attitude. There are communicated nonverbals to a person whom you are apologizing. If your apology does not come off sincere, then it really will feel meaningful. I mean, not meaningful to someone else. They're like, okay, somebody just told that person to apologize. And I don't feel like people should be forced to apologize. But I think if you think that you're required an apology, then I think it's okay to ask for that. And if that person says, I'm not going to apologize, of course, you can't make someone apologize. Then you have to be able to live without receiving that apology. And that's the issue. A lot of people can't live without that apology. But you really have to come up with, a way to deal with it. Because what if you never get that apology? Then what will you do? And you have to really think about that. So with apologies, with apologies, it's interesting because there is a difference. I know a lot of people talk about saying sorry and apologizing. Of course, there is a difference in saying I'm sorry and saying I apologize. How many of you have been raised to say you're never sorry? Don't say that you're sorry because there's nothing sorry about you. And I get that. And I've said that to my children also. And just saying, hey, I apologize, because I think apologizing you're taking ownership. You're not really dogging yourself out in a sense like, oh, I'm so sorry. But if you say I'm sorry and if it's sincere and you really obviously don't think that you're sorry, I don't think there's any harm in saying I'm sorry if that's just how you express your apology. I wouldn't get so much caught up in whether you're sorry or not, because we know that's not the case. There's another article that I saw and I found it interesting as well. And I'm still looking at Psychology Today. 5 reasons why some people will never say I'm sorry. They don't ever want to let anyone else off the hook. That's just being stubborn, really, if you ask me. But admissions of wrongdoing are incredibly threatening for non-apologists. Have you ever heard of that? There are some people out there called non-apologists because they have trouble separating their actions from their character. If they did something bad, they must be bad people, right? If they were neglectful, then they must be fundamentally selfish or just uncaring. If they were wrong, they must be ignorant or stupid, right? Therefore, apologies represent a major threat to their basic sense of identity. So that's why some people just feel like, I'm not going to say I'm sorry because I'm not this, I'm not that. And I think that's where a lot of people get it wrong. They think they're admitting to being bad people. I mean, come on, let's be real. All of us need to say I'm sorry or I apologize. And there are people out there that are requesting an apology from us, that need an apology from us. And we know that, but I think that gives people leverage or the upper hand when you know that they need an apology from you, but you just are too stubborn to get them to give it. What is that about? I mean, what do you think that's about? So before I go on, I'm just going to take a little break and then we're going to continue with the list. 5 reasons people will never say they're sorry. We'll be right back. Right now, don't forget to go to Amazon.com for my latest book, The Best Gift Ever, A Guide to Loving You, Learning How to Live Your Best Life. Make sure you leave a review on Amazon.com. Anyone who does will have their book personally signed by me, Kendell Lenice. Send me an email at livingtruelivingyou@gmail.com and I'll make sure you receive your signed copy. We'll be right back. All right, again, that was a quick break. If you're just tuning in, we are talking about apologies, the power of an apology. Why it's difficult for some people to apologize. So I'm reading from Psychology Today. As I stated in my line of work, I like to research and I like to figure out why people does what they does, why they do what they do, what's the real reason behind it. Of course, a lot of people have studies and research and statistics, but ultimately that's just talking to people and who they're, who's responding to their research questions and what they're trying to say and what case are they trying to build. But I'm not even going that deep. I'm just really just breaking the surface. And you've lived on this earth a long time, right? I mean, some longer than others, but you've had experiences with people and people have had experiences with you. And this is one thing that nobody can escape: being able to apologize or requesting an apology from someone. So number 2 on this list is apologizing might open the door to guilt for most of us, but non-apologists, it can instead open the door of shame. While guilt makes us feel bad about our actions, shame makes us non-apologists feel bad about their selves, who they are, which is why the shame is there. And it's more of a toxic emotion than guilt. So I find that interesting because you might look at some people and you're like, well, what's the big deal? Just apologize. But with some people, it's really difficult for them to do that because they internalize everything and they feel guilty. And I think that, of course, there's a bigger issue in there somewhere for that person who is a non-apologist, which from doing this show, that's the first time I've ever heard of that. Have you guys heard of that? I've never heard of a non-apologist. So that runs deep. Number 3 on this list is, while most of us consider apologies as opportunities to resolve interpersonal conflict, non-apologists may fear their apology will only open the floodgates to further accusations and conflicts. I can see how that can happen. Once they admit to one wrongdoing, surely the other person will pounce on the opportunity to pile all the previous offenses for which they refuse to apologize as well. So I guess, and I'm thinking about, my life, and I'm thinking about, over the course of years, think about that. So if you get somebody to apologize for one thing, they might make you try to apologize for everything, or you might make them try to apologize for everything. I guess while you're in the apologetic spirit, apologize for this and apologize for that. Oh, and you didn't apologize to me for this. I could see how that could totally get out of hand. But it may not be deep for some. You're like, what's the big deal, Kendell? I apologize when I'm wrong. But believe it or not, and you probably do believe it, but the average person is so set against apologizing, it's ridiculous. And as a life coach, I always talk about accountability and being self-aware. There are so many people that aren't self-aware and they're not accountable for their actions. They insist on blaming other people for the things that they've done. And if this person hadn't done this, then this wouldn't have happened. So I don't owe an apology because it is what it is. That's irritating if somebody's just like, it is what it is. And you have somebody like, I need an apology, but you got to understand, you just might not get it. Number 5 on this list is, by refusing to apologize, non-apologists are trying to manage their emotions. They are often comfortable with anger, irritability, and emotional distance, and experience emotional closeness and vulnerability to be extremely threatening. That's deep, and this is coming from Psychology Today. They fear that lowering their guard even slightly will make their psychological defenses crumble and open the floodgates to a well of sadness and despair that will pour out on them, leaving them powerless to stop it. Think about that. That's pretty deep. So when you think someone is possibly being stubborn, they might not be stubborn. They just might not know how to let that guard down. There are so many people that are guarded from past hurts and pains. And we're not even talking about on a relationship level. Let's talk about mommy issues. Let's talk about daddy issues. Let's talk about having your parent apologize. A lot of parents will not apologize. And I can't say that's me. My oldest daughter, who just turned 26, I'm still not even used to saying that. Yes, I have a daughter 26. What? Wasn't a child just born? But that's another topic. But I remember she told me on Twitter, because she is a Twitter fanatic. I'm an Instagram fanatic, so what can I say? But she said on Twitter something was going around, and it was talking about parents apologizing to their children. And she said, Mom, you know what? You apologize to me all the time. She's like, you don't have a problem apologizing. And I was like, really? You know what? I really don't. I don't have if I'm wrong, hey, I'm wrong. And if I do something wrong, or if I overstep my bounds, I say, hey, listen, I'm sorry. I apologize. I don't have a problem with saying that. But apparently a lot of parents have a problem apologizing. According to that, the Twitter feed, a lot of people are like, oh, you can't. They had a whole bunch of memes and funny memes on, why you can't get a parent to apologize and why they shouldn't apologize. But every situation can call for an apology because people get out of pocket all of the time. And I'm not talking about when your children are 2 years old and 3 years old and 10 years old and you're trying to keep them from a danger. But if there's something, or if you hurt someone's feelings, or if you say something, or if you do something, parents, it's okay to apologize to your children because kids are people too. You remember that show? And they really are. And I think some people feel like if they're your children, they will always be beneath you and you don't owe them an apology for anything. Now, I'm not talking about like, well, some of you might have an issue where you possibly didn't raise your kids, or you possibly did harm to your children in some capacity, and you have beef now and you're trying to mend it and trying to rebuild a relationship, and that might be on a deeper level, and that's where therapy will come in, or coaching or counseling will come in, because that's a deeper situation. And you might not know how to apologize, or if you're the parent or the child apologizing, then it might not be received because there's so much hurt and pain from past issues that it's hard to accept an apology. So I totally get it. Because when you say that you're sorry, though, if you're ready to receive it, it does restore dignity of that hurt person, and it does make them feel better that you at least acknowledge their feelings. Now, if you just feel like, you know what, I don't want to acknowledge their feelings, and it might not be, as I read to you earlier, it might not be that person is being stubborn. That person could be afraid of being vulnerable. Because listen, when you're vulnerable, there's no shield anymore. Like, you're showing the person who you are. And that's not always easy to do. So you really have to think about that before you start saying, oh, somebody is this or somebody is that. And why can't you just say, I'm sorry? But think about it. Would you just want an apology, from someone and they don't really mean it? Some of you might say, yeah, I don't care if they mean it or not. I need the apology so I can go on. And then have you ever heard of people saying, well, that wasn't a meaningful apology? Or, I'm sorry, like I said in the beginning of the show, I'm sorry, that you feel this way or that way. And I would like for you to state why you're apologizing, and why you won't receive or you will receive. Don't just say sorry. You really have to put some emotion into it. I'm not saying that you have to win an Emmy or NAACP Image Award by acting out how sorry you are, but you still want to be sincere, right? You want to give sincerity and you want to receive it. So believe it or not, everything has an order and how you're supposed to do something. And there is, believe it or not, an appropriate way to apologize. You want to first express remorse. Every apology needs to start with, I apologize or I'm sorry. And then go on to tell the person why you apologize. Now, if you just say sorry, what you sorry for? Well, I don't know. I'm saying sorry because you need an apology. And I understand that some people pressure you to give an apology, but you can't force someone to apologize or force someone to know without having that conversation. That's why communication is extremely important in any relationship on any level. And we're not just talking about romantic relationships. We're talking about relationships between friends. We're talking about parent-child relationships of all ages. We're talking about work relationships. We're talking about siblings. All of that. You have to have a mutual respect and understanding to communicate effectively. You have to be able to hear one another, and you have to be able to see one another even with your eyes closed. Step 2 to the appropriate apology, you want to admit responsibility. You want to say, these were my actions, these were my this was my behavior, and this is what I did, and hey, I'm sorry. Even if you don't know what you did, allow that person to tell you what they did or what they need from you. But you ultimately want to make amends and try to not repeat the same thing. Because as I talked about it in my life note, change behavior is the best way to see that the apology is real. Now, you can expect change behavior to happen overnight, because that's just not how it goes. If someone took X amount of time to become this way, then it's going to take X amount of time to not be whatever way that is. And I think really spending time with people and really getting to understand people and know people and what they expect of you and what you expect of them. But know that you may never get an apology. So if you never get the apology, what would you do? Think about that. Will you just crumble and just be angry for the rest of your life, or will you try to find a way to live without it? And that's what you got to think about. And a lot of people can't live past that because they're like, my mom didn't apologize to me. My dad didn't apologize to me. My mom didn't apologize to me for walking away. My dad didn't apologize for walking away, or they weren't there, and sometimes you won't. And the sad and the most hurtful apology never gotten is if someone passes away and you don't get that apology. So, people in my line of work say, write it down, write them a letter, tell them all the things that you need. Of course, if that person is no longer here, then you can't mail it, but it's about getting that out and really finding out, like, why did you need that apology? Why do you feel like you can't move on? Why is that apology stopping you from living your life? Because a lot of people, it gives them comfort and it gives them security in an apology. And the purpose of saying you're sorry is to just really respect the other person and have enough care for the other person to acknowledge their hurt, pain, disappointment, anger, and all of that good stuff. So it's interesting. We're talking about getting apologies, but some say you don't need to accept an apology. And that's what a lot of experts say. And of course, we don't need an expert to tell us we don't need to accept the apology. If the apology is bull crap and you don't accept it, then you don't accept it. It might sound harsh, but you don't have to accept everyone's apology. If they do a horrific act to you, and if they apologize to you and you don't accept that apology, that's fine. You just have to make it right with God and be able to forgive within your heart. And it doesn't mean that you have to carry on a relationship of any kind with that person or talk to them or even follow them on social media. It could be a stranger and they were out of pocket, because that people say anything they want online. But that's what the block button is for. And you have the right to say who you want to stay in your life and who you want to be dismissed, who you want to delete in your contacts, and who you want to keep. So apology doesn't mean that you have to continue a relationship of any sort with that person, because when you're hurt, when you're hurt, someone hurt you. It's hard to move past that. And different psychologists, different therapists, they talk about that. Different life coaches like myself, you don't need to accept the apology. So, reasons why you don't need to accept the apology. When the apology does just not genuine, when it's not genuine and someone is just playing games and they're like, I'm sorry, Dad, can we move on? You don't have to accept that mess. And then it could be something as simple as you're not ready to accept their apology. Sometimes it's about timing, it's about place, it's about where you are in your life, and you just might not be ready to accept it. But you do have to remember, if God takes that person off the earth and you weren't ready to accept it, then you have to know that you might not have another chance. So you might want to reevaluate it at that point. Or you might just be okay. And that's okay. So other reasons why people don't accept apologies: if that one person, that second person, that third person apologizes every day for the same thing, you do want to see some type of change, because we've all apologized and may have done the same thing, or someone has apologized to us and done the same thing. Again, like I stated earlier, if somebody's been doing something for a long time, give them a chance to change and to see if there will be different behavior, and then evaluate it or reevaluate it at that point. So another reason why your apology might not be accepted is when you're ready to just end and cut ties. It could be a relationship, it could be a work relationship, it could be two friends. When you know what, enough is enough, and you're ready just to cut ties. I don't need your apology, you don't need mine, let's just move on. And that might be the case, and that might be okay, because if you're not going to maintain a relationship with your friend, parent, sibling, coworker, roommate, or partner, you might not feel a need to accept an apology from them because they're going their way and you're going yours. If you do ultimately decide to accept the apology, you're not obligated to maintain a relationship with that other person. Whatever the line is for you, it could be abuse, infidelity, eating the last piece of Cheez-It cupcake. You might be like, that's enough, because you always drink the last of the juice or whatever. You can decide, yes, I'll accept your apology, or no, I'm not interested in accepting your apology. You can't control what they did or make them apologize in the way that you want, but you can stand up for yourself and choose what they will do to you in the future and what type of relationship you'll have. Another reason why you don't have to accept it is if the apology isn't specific. Like, yeah, I apologize for all that. All what? All that. Yeah, you don't know what you're talking about. You're not apologizing. Sticking to a general or vague apologies might mean that they don't actually even understand why they need to apologize. They feel like they do. And that's why I say, even in that case, just say, you know what? I'm sorry I hurt you. If the person clearly looks hurt, or they're saying, hey, you hurt me, I apologize, I hurt you. Boom. That's sincere, hopefully, and you apologize for that. But a lot of people can't accept an apology when they've experienced some type of trauma by the other person. It was something they just really can't get past, and they're not willing to accept an apology. And if you hurt somebody in a way that, makes them feel a certain way and they feel like they can't forgive you, then you're going to have to bite that, and you're going to have to own that, and you're going to have to accept that and really watch the behavior going forward. Maybe not with that person, but maybe that's the life lesson that you need for the next person, because I truly believe that when you're dealing with people, although people are different, people want similar things. They want to be honored. They want to be respected. They want to be treated in a certain fashion, in a manner. And they just want to know that their feelings matter and they're valid. And sometimes that's all it takes. Now, some people have deeper rooted issues. Some people have serious issues, emotionally, and trying to understand and trying to forgive and trying to apologize and trying to receive an apology. I mean, this life is something, and a lot of people have seen a lot of things in life, and apology for some might be really significant and needed, and some people might be the total opposite. Yeah, I don't need that apology. That's not going to make me or break me. I'm going to continue living my life. And that's why it's so hard to really blanket it, because it really is up to you, and it's really about what you need. But you want to find out why you need what you need, because some people need things that other people don't need. So that's why it's so difficult sometimes dealing with different types of people. And in this world, we have different types of people. You have certain friends that require certain things. You have certain relationships you get into that require certain things. You have some mother-daughter relationships that require something, or father-sons relationships that require something. It's not a one size fits all. You have to figure out what works for you. Positive outcomes from giving a sincere apology are proven. When someone gives a sincere apology, it does something to the person. It makes them feel validated. And at the end of the day, whether you believe it or not, or whether it's you or not, people want to feel validated. They want to be heard. They want to feel like their feelings matter, doggone it. So you really have to think about that. And you might be the person that doesn't need an apology, or you don't apologize and you know how to keep it pushing. But that person that you're talking to, they might really need it. This might be the apology they need. And it might take the place of someone else's apology who might have done the same thing, and they may not ever receive that. So there is power in apologies. I know you might not have thought that, but that's what Shine is for, to bring you the real, to bring you the honesty, and to bring you issues and topics that will make you better. Ultimately, everybody is talking about living your best life. And even in my book, I talk about living your best life. As a life coach, we've always talked about that. But we need to find ways that help us live our best lives in a healthy way. And that's about living free of the opinions of others, living free and not being a hostage to other people. Now, you might say, well, an apology is being a hostage to other people. I say it's not. I think it's freeing and it's open, and it's all about communication and really trying to just be free of the bull crap. If somebody asks for an apology from you, give them the darn apology if it's not something major. And I understand, as I stated earlier, there are a lot of different issues, a lot of different red tape and fine lines about an apology. But apologies can set you free. At the end of the day, you can't live your best life if you're not here. If you got a whole bunch of garbage and gook in you and you're a trash receptacle, everybody's trash is going into you, and you got a lot of trash and issues that you're trying to deal with on the inside. So step by step, in order to be a whole person, a happy person, and to really make a difference in your own life, you got to be able to clear out the gook and find out the rooted issues to a lot of issues that you may have. And with Shine, that's what I'll do. So, like I said, it's a variety of different shows. So check out my other shows. Check those out and see what you think about the other shows. I talk about a variety of issues. And like I said, this is a serious one, but then we'll be laughing and joking the next time. But I'm so glad that you tuned in to Shine today. I'm so excited that you did. I hope that you're able to tell a friend about Shine. Thank you so much for tuning in. God bless. Thank you for tuning in to Shine. Shine airs live every Wednesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. For more information about Shine and Kendell Lenice, visit livingtruelivingyou.com. Remember, it's never too late to remix your life.